Okay, I think if everyone is reasonably comfortable in their seats, we'll call this sort of special meeting to order. I'm sort of used to doing things like that, calling things to order. And then the question is, when do I lose control? I would like to thank everyone for coming this evening. This is kind of a special occasion for us in Birtle District. We've spent an awful lot of time and energy in creating the foundation that we have and the foundation that we're going to talk about tonight. And there's a whole bunch of people that I need to thank for that. This has not been a short road that we've been on. We started on the creation of a foundation a number of years ago. The town of Birtle started it probably close to 10 years ago. There is a ton of paperwork and an awful lot of forms. We are governed very tightly and closely by Revenue Canada, and it just takes an awful lot of work to get to the stage where you are recognized as a charitable organization. I'd like to thank Eleanor Nostransky for all the hard work that she's done. She's basically the administration of the foundation from the start. Without her, we wouldn't be here. We have a board now. The board was appointed by the town and the Arm of Birtle. We've been in existence, I guess, for probably over 6 months now, 8 months. And we're at the stage right now where this evening is our official kickoff. We would like to thank Ron and Brenda Samchuk for being here this evening and recording this. And the intent is to have it on Access TV for the next little while and certainly advertise our existence and who and what we are and what we hope to accomplish here in the long term. Foundations are certainly, we will be on the landscape in this community, I would hope, forever, perpetuity, a long time. And we can look forward to a lot of benefits down the road for the years to come. Now, I do have some comments that I would like to make, and certainly some more people that I would like to thank. But I think first, I'm going to ask Alan Preston to come up. Alan Preston, as probably most everyone knows, is from Hamiota. Alan is the chair of the Hamiota Foundation and certainly has a lot of knowledge about foundations. They have been out the gate somewhat earlier than we have by a few years. And I'm going to ask Alan to come up and give a presentation on foundations, sort of what they are, how they work. And at the end of Alan's presentation, I'm hoping that I don't have to hardly explain a thing, because Alan will have done it all so efficiently. So Alan, please come up, and everyone please welcome Alan. Thanks, sir. It's all yours.
I'm a little shorter than him, so I'll have to bring this down. Nobody told me I was going to be on TV, so I should have worn a suit and a tie and done my hair a little better, but I guess I'll have to make do as best I can. I have one question for you before I get into the presentation. How did you decide, given the equine culture in this particular town, as to which breed of horse would be on your poster? Was there any debate around that point? Or anyway, just curious. I don't profess to be an expert on foundations. I have been involved with the Hamiota Foundation since it was reincarnated a few years ago. I can share a few things with you and a few thoughts, and I'll do that. And certainly I hope as the evening progresses, if there's further discussion and questions and answers to touch on things that I have missed in my presentation. The Hamiota Foundation actually was founded back in 1999 for a number of reasons. It got out of the gate very slowly, and it sort of floundered and almost died. It certainly went into hibernation in about 2001. 6 years later, at the time of a couple of centennial events in Hamiota, a group of people decided they wanted to kickstart it again and get it going. So we did really get heavily engaged in 2007. So we've been quite active now for, I guess, 4 years. I think we've made some significant progress in that time frame. Not as much as some other areas, but certainly significant progress. And we're, for I guess 3 of those 4 years now, we've been making grants back to the community for various activities. So the foundation is indeed doing what it set out to do, build an endowment fund and then use the proceeds from that endowment fund to fund activities in the community. It does take lots of people, lots of ideas, and indeed lots of money to keep communities alive, to keep them progressing as we'd like to see them do. And one of the things that I've learned along the way in the 4 years I've been involved is that foundations don't necessarily function strictly on the basis of what we would normally think of as donations. There are lots of ways to provide money to foundations other than writing out a check. There can be pledges over a number of years, bequests in wills, life insurance where the foundation is named as a beneficiary, annuities, even real estate. There's a lot of different ways that the foundation can be funded, and we're just starting to scratch the surface on some of those aspects. And I think as we begin to scratch that surface, we hope we can find more donations. In terms of what we provide money back to the community to support, the list is very long. We support or try to support the arts, cultural activities, heritage programs, health and education, scholarships, senior services, various social programs, various sports programs, and youth activities. In the short time that we've been in operation, the very first thing we decided was that our first grant back to the community would be in the form of scholarships. We put two $250 scholarships in place for the graduating class from the Hamilton Collegiate, and those scholarships go to students who really have shown through their years in school an adaptation to community support and volunteerism, because those are kind of key ingredients for doing the same thing in life after high school. In addition, we've provided funds, and albeit not very large checks, but we provide funds to a fitness center that is the Midwest Recreation District has in place. We provided some funds last year to park residents. Some of you might be aware that park residents that's one of our senior citizens housing units underwent some severe water damage from some flooding a couple of years ago, and we provided some money to them to put some doors back onto the hinges and get the folks back into their suites. We provided funds to the Kids Club. We provided a small donation to the Soccer Association and to the Birdtail Festival. So there's been a number of areas already that we've been able to provide some money back to the community. And I think it's quite important, and it's actually kind of coincidental that this event's taking place tonight, because last night we had a newcomers night in Hamilton where we welcomed the folks into town who had moved there in the last couple of years. And at that newcomers night, we also announced the grants that we have made from the foundation. And it's a pretty good opportunity for the new people coming to town to recognize that here's an organization that is not only out there with their hand out collecting money, but they're giving that money back to the community as best they can. I'm going to take a minute and just read to you sometimes not a bad thing to plagiarize. I'm just going to read to you what the definition of a community foundation is, and I'm sure all of you are aware of this, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded. Community foundations bring together people who care about their communities. They're independent, volunteer-driven, charitable organizations that aim to strengthen those communities by facilitating philanthropy, by partnering with donors to build permanent endowments and other funds from which they support community projects, and providing leadership on issues of broad community concern. They are founded on trust. Community foundations help donors achieve their charitable goals and invest financial capital in their communities. But they also stimulate and nurture the relationships that link us to others and that create a sense of belonging to a community. Social scientists call these vital connections social capital, and have found that they are linked to many measures of community and individual well-being. Community foundations experienced in building financial capital for their communities also have a role in leadership building within those communities, the glue that holds communities together. It's a pretty good definition, and it comes from some propaganda, that's the wrong word to use, from very good, useful information from the Manitoba Community Foundations group here in the province. And again, if you're not familiar with it, there are currently 46 community foundations across the province that are part and parcel of the Manitoba Community Foundations. They run a program, they did run a program last fall entitled Endow Manitoba. And again, the role for that group is to assist foundations large and small across the province to build their endowment funds. Just to put it into kind of perspective, in the $100,000 in provincial funding in the last couple of years has levered $1.5 million in donor support, creating an almost $2 million endowment fund. So those, the Manitoba Community Foundations are pretty important in making those linkages. Another topic just briefly to touch on is kind of the linkage between small startup foundations like ours in Hamilton, like yours in Birtle, is the linkage that you can have to very large foundations within the province. And the two that come to mind obviously are the Winnipeg Foundation and the Brandon Community Foundation. Both of these larger organizations will manage your funds for a small fee, and as I understand, I think that's the route that Birtle has adopted. To put it into kind of perspective, Brandon is managing about $3 million in assets right now and putting out over $100,000 in grants every year. I think the last thing I saw in Winnipeg that they're managing something in the realm of $100 million in assets. So it's a pretty significant chunk of money. The other thing I want to touch on briefly, and before I turn the microphone back over to Roger, is something that has been named or called the transfer of wealth. I don't know how many of you might have had the opportunity, but back in April of 2008, just about 3 years ago now, at the Capturing Opportunities event in Brandon, there was a speaker in there by the name of Milan Wall from the Heartland Center for Leadership Development in Nebraska, and he was speaking primarily about community foundations and how to grab hold of, for lack of a better word, some of the dollars that are floating around in our communities. And he coined this term transfer of wealth, and he did some statistics on Canada. And with all due respect to most of you in the room, as I look around, there are a number of us in this room that are getting up in years to some degree, and we hope that we have a few assets left in our pockets at the end of the day. There are a lot of financial assets to be transferred both in the U.S. and Canada in the very short time frame of the future that's coming at us. Anyway, the speaker estimated that Canada's 10-year transfer of wealth would total about $31 billion. That's how many dollars are set to change hands between people who are moving on to the whatever is over the Great Divide to those who are left behind. The goal that he put forward as a challenge to the group was that how do we try to capture 5% of those dollars? If we could capture 5% of Canada's $31 billion and put it into community foundations, what a difference that would make. Now, I haven't done the math, and maybe the banker can help me out here, but I'm not sure what the numbers are for Birtle or Hamiota, but I would hazard the guess there are significant dollars changing hands as we speak, and I'm not trying to interfere with that normal transition of funds between families and their heirs, but I'm just pointing out that there are significant dollars there, and it's up to all of us collectively to plant the seed with people that, hey, this is an opportunity to give something back to the community that you've lived in your whole life, the community that helped you raise your children, the community that organized sporting events and Boy Scouts and Girl Guides, and you name the list goes on and on. I think that if there's a way to do that, we need to figure out what it is and tap into it. Albert Einstein, among his many attributes, made a quote one day that said the most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. Maybe the last couple of years it hasn't been quite so true, but in general, yeah, compound interest helps us all grow. So when we get an endowment fund established, the interest on it will help out considerably. A couple of cases in point in the last year that really drove it home to me, and I'm not sure how many of you would have seen the headlines, but a retired teacher who had sort of long since faded away from the landscape in the Minnedosa area, much to everyone's surprise, put $1 million into the Minnedosa Foundation through her estate. Their foundation went from having a bank balance of $75,000 or $80,000 to having $1,080,000 in a short time frame. You can only imagine what that will do for their community in terms of the grants they can hand back out. Rivers is another case in point. They didn't have a foundation, but they had an individual there, a bachelor farmer, who indicated before he died that he was going to leave a considerable chunk of money to the community, and could they figure out a way to utilize those dollars? So they very quickly did the paperwork that Roger talked about and formed a foundation, and he left $500,000 to that foundation that obviously got them up and running in a hurry. So I guess my message is we need to